Hey, what's going on, everybody? It is episode number 70 of the Audible Farm podcast, and this episode is brought to you by Couchtown Coffee. Couchtown Coffee is my favorite coffee. It's roasted right here in Iowa. They will ship it to your house. There's not a whole lot that's better than shipping coffee straight to your house. You don't even have to go out in the morning. You don't have to go to one of those big box places. You don't have to go to the store and buy one of the same coffee everyone else has. You can get something roasted especially for you in a small batch and shipped to your house, and it is amazing. Couchtown Coffee, you can go to www.couchtowncoffee.com, find the coffee section, make an order, and when you make an order, tell them Audible Farm sent you. And in order to do that, make sure you enter the code word KKB. KKB, that is the code word. It's in the description section down below. It will save you 20% on your order this week when you order at couchtowncoffee.com. 20% off your order. Enter that code word KKB. Why is the code word KKB? Well, this week I'm sitting down talking with the Kris Karr Band. Not one of them, not two of them, all of them. The whole shebang. Everybody's here, and it's pretty wild. It took a while to set this thing up, but once we got it all set up, we were good to go. And this episode is a good one. It's pretty long. It's one of the longer episodes I've done. I kind of just sit down and talk with everybody in the band. I've talked with Scott Dahl before a couple times, and I've talked with Jeff Blummel before on the podcast, so you can scroll back and look at some of those if you want some more in-depth on what those, a little bit more in-depth information as to what those two guys are up to. And, otherwise I spent a lot of the time just kind of seeing what kind of stories these guys had, how they got together, some of their past, and, just the normal podcast stuff. One of the fun things about this one is I talked to Scott Dahl once before, and another time I talked to him was mostly about the Rockin' Picnic, which is an annual show in the summer that takes place in Humboldt, Iowa. And he did mention that they do have a winter party coming up, so I'm going to mention that in the intro and outro, but probably up until the show hits, because I'll tell you what, those Rockin' Picnic shows are tons of fun, and I don't see why this one's going to be any different just because it's in the winter and it's indoors. They're calling it the Rockin' Picnic Winter Party 2020. It takes place on February 22nd, 2020. That's an easy one to remember, 2/22/2020. And one of my favorite bands from around the area is going to be there. It's a J. Clyde Band. They are so awesome. The show is still going to take place. I know that Rustics has switched owners, but the show is still taking place. Music starts at 8. It is free. Make sure you come up to Humboldt for that one. It's going to be a great time. The Rockin' Picnic Winter Party featuring J. Clyde Band, and they are going to be at Rustics on February 22nd. And that's in, just a few weeks. So check that one out. I, on the Audible Farm page, have shared a flyer for that. I will be sharing the event page for that soon. And check it out. That's going to be a great show. Just like this episode. This episode was awesome. I wasn't sure exactly how to go about doing it, whether or not I wanted to mic everybody up or how we wanted to do that. So actually I got a little help from Kris Karr. And anybody that knows Kris Karr knows that he's good at the sound stuff. So I'll tell you what, it worked out great. I want to say thanks fresh off the bat before we even get into the interview. I want to say thanks to Kris Karr for helping me set this up and making it work out as well as it did. I really appreciate it. This episode is great. I had a wonderful time sitting down talking with these guys. I want to say thanks to each of them because they traveled from around the area, but some traveled farther than others, and we all got to meet up in one location on a day I'm assuming they usually have practice. So huge shout out to those guys for taking some time out of their day to sit down and talk with me. I really appreciate it, and I know you guys are going to love this one too. This is episode number 70 with the Kris Karr Band.
It's the Audible Farm Podcast with your host, Peter Stockdale.
Dun, 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 dun. So you don't need to do the music this
No,
time.
yeah, exactly. I've actually debated doing like a track by track thing and smushing it all together a cappella style just for fun for once. But
We could do that. All right. Lean forward when you go to talk.
Take two.
all right, here we go. Sitting down today with the entire Kris Karr Band. Every one of us is here. It was one of those things where I tried to get an interview with each one of these guys, but it turned out to be difficult. So what we did was I crashed one of their practice days where they all agreed to come up here and sit in one room together, and I could knock them all out. And I've got everybody here. And Jeff Blummel's here. I've talked to him before. He's waving to the microphone if you can't see him.
Hey.
That's what a wave sounds like.
That's what, yeah. That's
Sound wave.
That's Bruce Borchers there. And I've got Scott Dahl here. I've talked to Scott a couple times. Once I just talked to Scott about what he's got going on. Another time it was heavily involved. We talked about the Rockin' Picnic, which is a yearly show in Humboldt, so check that one out. I've also got Brad Strickland. And I've got Kris Karr himself sitting down as well with me. And the setup's a little bit different, but the show is going to be the same. So I'm just going to sit down and talk with these guys. The first question I guess I have is, how did all you guys meet? Like, how did all this come together as it sits right now? We got people pointing at each other.
Go ahead. Lay it on them.
Kris was playing solo gigs. I kind of stepped away from a band, and he invited me to show up one night, and it seemed to work, and so I showed up again, and it worked again that night. And then we were hanging out at the music store one day, and Bruce rolls in, and a couple of guitars got picked up. We started running a couple of tunes, and there was 3-part harmony, and that worked really well. And then 3 of us were doing some gigs, and Brad showed up, and that worked really well. And then Kris hunted Scott down and threatened him within an inch of his life. That's the story I was told.
That's how it went.
Oh, man. So you guys are all obviously pretty good buddies. What music shop was it that you ran into Kris at?
That was Eighth Note Music.
Eighth Note Music.
On the corner of 18th Street and 8th Avenue North.
That's
the only straight through road through Fort Dodge, because it goes from Olson Park up to the stadium, and there used to be a rail line.
That was a trolley line.
Trolley line, yeah.
That ran north and south, and then it connected with Central Avenue. It was the T line.
Okay.
And so Eighth Note Music was a general store in 1905, and it was a fuel and water stop.
Huh. Oh, that's cool.
So, yeah.
But you've worked for Kris. You've worked for different music stores, though, over time. Because I want to say I ran into you initially at music stores, over the last 15 years somewhere.
If you ran into me in town, I would have worked at Reman's first. I started working there, but that's 25 years ago now.
Oh, okay.
And so I worked there from 94 to 96, and then we moved to Minnesota. So, and I was up there 8 years, and we came back, and there was nothing happening here musically.
When you left or when you came back?
When we came back, there were no bands playing, no bars having bands. I mean, it was just as dead as it could be.
And that's here, Fort Dodge area you're talking about. So.
Yeah. I was in shock, and then I was working for a company that does amusements, and they were doing the Iowa Lottery Touch Play, those machines. Well, then that was all voted out, and I looked at the owner's son, and I said, you wait and see. I'll be playing every weekend because people are going to need stuff to do. And literally within 3 months, I was in a band, and we were playing pretty much every weekend.
Yeah. I mean, what year was it that you came back? Because I remember growing up, and there wasn't, like live music. It's not like it wasn't an option completely, but it kind of wasn't.
No, I came back in the summer, or actually fall of 2004.
Yeah, that sounds about right. I would have been in high school then.
And then I took a job, and I wasn't playing. I didn't know what I was going to be doing, I was just glad to be back because I have a lot of friends here, and it was horrible to see. I'd left and there was a lot of music here, and that's the reason that I came to this area. I came here in the early '80s, and I played a place called the Holiday House, which people would know as the Budget Host Inn, which they've just tore down recently.
Oh.
So that's how I came to town. I didn't grow up here. I'm originally from Cedar Rapids.
Okay.
So I come here and I'm playing, but I'll be here, a week and then gone, and we might be back in 3 months. Is how that went. So I come back and I started to make friends, but soon realized that this town had, I think, 7 clubs running music nightly, at least 6 days a week. And so there was tons of stuff going on, lots of musicians. The town was predominantly a country town with one club that had hard rock in it, and that was Legends.
All right.
And that's how that was going. But this was a busy town, and I just remember thinking, wow, there's really great musicians here. I frequented here, and then I frequented Mankato, and Mankato, Minnesota, and as well, there were really great musicians there.
Yeah, and it's kind of crazy to think how, like, I always think to myself, what caused a drop off? Because it seems like, and I'm not trying to put an age gap between us, but between how you guys' age, like, it seems like you guys played a whole bunch of music, a whole bunch of places in the 90s, 80s, in somewhere in that area, and then all of a sudden it started just weaning off. What do you think attributes, if anybody has any ideas, like, what do you think attributed to, like, because it wasn't just Fort Dodge. I'm assuming it was pretty much every smaller-ish, non-big city like Des Moines. Music there was less and less and less of it. Anybody have any bright thoughts?
Well, a couple of things happened. The drunk driving laws really hit hard, and also dram shop insurance for clubs. So it killed their profits, which made them stop having bands. Along with that, then grunge music is coming in. So you've got Nirvana and bands like that. And the kids that are listening to that aren't actually really interested in other types of music at that point. It used to be that how you came to play, like all of us, you would look to the older players, and if you got lucky enough to jam with them, they would remember you, and if a player was down that night sick, you could get a fill-in gig. So in a way, they fostered you into live music, the live music scene. So you were going to play covers, but you were going to play a lot of older covers. I mean, I remember playing in Cedar Rapids. I was in a band that had 375 song repertoire, and I played everything that was from the 1940s all the way up to what was current at that time. But for some reason that didn't happen anymore. And so I can't tell you exactly why. It just didn't happen. So I think after I left, that was all really taking shape, and I was gone 8 years, and so by the time I came back, that's where we were. But I was up in Minneapolis, St. Paul area, and I had an original band up there, and we were busy doing that kind of thing, and I was a sound guy too. So,
all right, Jeff, you sing in musicals currently. Did you do anything before you ran into Kris? Like, what did you do to keep you busy?
Oh yeah, I mean, when Kris moved up to the cities, I had just recently moved to here.
Okay, and
that's how I actually met Kris through his wife, because we worked for the same company.
Okay.
But when I was out west, I played in a couple of different bands out there.
All right.
Around the Colorado Springs area first, and then up around the Boulder area with that. And there's a lot of musicians there. There's 60, 65-year-old guys that are still going to be rock stars living in Boulder.
Yeah.
They know they are eventually.
Okay.
But,
all right.
all
right.
It just hasn't turned for them yet. But they still play, and you could sit in with like some really, really good, top-notch players, or there would be open jam nights, and guys that had like 5 or 6 platinum albums and multiple gold records would walk in, and it's like, take that tune off the list. that's his tune. We're
Yeah.
not playing that tune,
Okay,
you
yeah.
know.
Yep.
And stuff with that. And then I came here, and and then I was raising kids at the time, so I kind of took a break for a few years, and then when they were all grown and doing their thing, then I started getting back into the music scene. Started doing some musicals and plays then, and but then really missed playing, and so then got in a band, and then when that kind of broke up, then things were kind of idle for about 6 months, and then Kris and I ran into each other, and we got together.
You were kind of hanging. You would come over to Community Pizza when I'd be playing over there with a band, and
watch.
Yeah,
Miss God,
but then you
that.
sat in with us. We were doing "You're No Good," and you sat with us one time, and I was like,
nobody was
wow.
singing that high harmony.
Yeah, I was
God,
that's
you
really
gotta have
cool.
that high harmony in there. And then I remember doing that the first time. You were like, "What the? Where's that coming from?"
Yeah, exactly. Where's that coming?
Because I missed that. You got to have that 3 and 4 part going through there. So
yeah, I mean, now you mention it, that song that definitely does kind of make that song. The higher harmony. It fills
And
it
figured
up.
the guy with the lowest voice can carry the high harmony.
Right.
Well, I was, when I was a kid growing up, we had a piano in the basement, and my mom was always like, "I want to play drums." I had some cousins that were in a band, and I'd been watching them since I was like 5, and I wanted to play drums. We're not playing drums; we have a piano.
Okay.
And so when I was 18, I got this apartment, and it was like, buy a couch or buy drums. Bought drums, and I could sit on the floor, And that's kind of where that started, and I taught myself how to play. And, so that's how the kind of the music thing started there for me. But it just took off from there, just you start in. But I before that, I was going to say, like, my only instrument was my voice. And so I had to learn. I would listen to, Dan Fogelberg, the Beatles, Crosby, Stills, and Nash, all of these bands the Byrds that harmonized. And I would listen to these albums so much, I would learn all the parts, from, okay, somebody's singing down here, and then somebody's way up there. And so and I would listen to them enough to where I could cover all those parts. And that's why it worked out with You're No Good. I just kind of walked in there, that part's missing. You got to have that part, and it fills that out. And it's kind of how, we kind of got the bug in each other's ear and took off from there.
I'd have to say that's probably one of the best parts about you guys all as a band is the fact that you can all sing, and you sing harmonies. You do it. You do it well. You have a very full vocal presence as a band, which I think a lot of other bands may seem to lack. Not that I'm like trying to be picking favorites, and I'm not just saying that because you guys are sitting next to me either. Like it's very clear cut. If somebody comes to see you live, it's a very full sounding band, which is I think lends itself to the fact that you have 2 very good vocalists singing, and each and every one of you, I think, takes a turn. Brad, you sing as well?
Yeah.
All right. And
Which
Bruce
is kind of a new thing for me. It's I didn't start singing and playing until I was with the Kris Karr Band.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I still struggle with it once in a while, but
Oh yeah, we all do.
yeah.
Well, I'm definitely surely not a singer. So anybody that can sing with any capacity always makes me kind of wowed. Even though I have tried to play my hand at singing a few times, but
You do well.
I mean, it's you could. I'm all right. All right. You can tell the difference between some people of your caliber and mine, but it's really kind of cool. It's you guys were one of the first bands I recall seeing in the area made up of local musicians, and I was just like, dude, these guys are awesome, and it was one of those things when you're playing guitar and you're younger and you're just kind of like, dude, I'm so good at the guitar and I could shred all these power chords, and watch me with my long hair, and just you get that attitude, and then you go see people that can actually play their instruments, and you're just like, jeez, like, okay, I got a long ways to go, and these guys are from around here, and
Yeah, but we all started that same way.
Yep.
I mean, we were,
Very same.
we were cripples.
Yeah.
You go through that. I remember, singing, just like you're talking about. I would sit there and learn how to sing all these different parts, and I'd have my headphones on, and I'd be sitting in a beanbag chair, and I think I was like 13 years old, and I got these Panasonic headset on that I just absolutely loved, and I am singing to the Doobie Brothers, and my dad comes home from work, and he can hear something, and it sounds like somebody getting killed. And he comes running in, and the look on his face, he's going, "Oh my God, I thought you were dying!" You know?
Oh my gosh. Coming from a dad, it's hard to tell. It's like, are you serious or you're not? You know, but it's the same rate. I've definitely heard that one. Like, the funniest one I heard was I was at a band practice and somebody walked in and they were like, you know, I saw a horrific accident once, and it was this trailer full of pigs and this trailer full of tin cans, and they ran into each other on the highway, and it sounded a lot like this.
Wow.
So I've definitely heard something along those lines before.
Oh, that's good.
I mean, you got to take it as it comes, though. It's usually non-musically talented people saying things like that. But Bruce,
that rates right up there with the vinegar and potpourri truck.
What's that?
Never mind.
Another time. Bruce, you play guitar. You play. I'm assuming most of what I would call the leads in Kris Karr Band. As far as I know that, Kris, you play a lot of guitar while you sing, and you are. I mean, I guess it bears your namesake, the band, but you do a lot of the leads in the songs, I'm assuming.
Well, Kris and I carry probably half and half the load. I know he tries to throw more at me, but he's as capable as I am.
All right.
And we're definitely bread and butter.
Okay.
Our styles are a lot different from each other.
Apples and oranges,
Yep.
and which is great.
I think
absolutely
that's what
great.
makes
I
it
learn
work.
stuff from him every time he puts his
vice
fingers
versa.
on the fretboard.
That's good to hear, because that's actually how I started learning. You find somebody that knows something, and you're just like,
Oh, yeah.
how'd you do that? You know, or you watch them, and you're like, I'm gonna try that when I get home. You know,
Yep.
so
The nice thing about that is that it doesn't matter what age you are. You know, you can look at a kid that's 20 years younger than you, and go, wow, how did you do that?
Yeah, absolutely.
You
Yeah,
know?
yeah. Never be intimidated by better players, because that's who you learn from.
exactly.
You know.
Yeah.
I think it takes a long time to erase I mean, I'm going to call back to this a lot. It takes a long time to erase that teenage ego to get to that point.
Yep.
I mean, I was in my 20s by the time I got to that point. So
Yeah, when a 12-year-old shows up that can play rings around you, you're erased.
Yeah. Your day is over.
Yeah.
yeah, that was. I mean, I started going to jam nights at like 30, and that was one thing I realized. Like, there's people younger than me that are better than me.
Oh,
you
yeah.
know? And then you're just like, well, geez, I need to get off the couch and play a little bit.
Yeah.
Like, did you start originally playing guitar? Is that what?
Yeah, I wanted to be a drummer,
All right.
Couldn't afford... I actually borrowed a set, and it was like parts of a set, and was not satisfied, couldn't get what I wanted, so I think my brother got the first guitar and taught me my first 3 chords, and I stole his guitar, and I stole his bass, too. And so I learned bass and guitar, and finally bought a guitar. I rented my first guitar from the music store.
So did your brother play too then? Or
Yep, my brother's still a bass player.
Okay.
Very good one, yep.
All right.
Yeah, we were raised, though not the whole family was musical, but most.
Mm-hmm.
My mom had us doing barbershop or on the piano
Oh, cool.
when we were young.
Wow.
That's
and,
awesome.
Yeah, so we had, our basement was Jam Central,
That's
and our
sweet.
garage, yeah.
Light a rose, oh, light a rose. Oh, come on, sing the next part.
I don't know that one.
Right.
No, it was something, I can't remember those songs. Yeah, I'd have to reach back to find those songs. But
Isn't that funny though? And that's the culture. We had all those old songs that
Yeah.
were really available
Yeah.
to us because music was. When I was a kid, music was just such a huge deal. It was. I would liken it to whatever the most popular thing is right now. It had the impact that the cell phone had. It was special, and like you had entertainment shows on TV, and they might have 3 acts on there. They might have an actor, but they'd always have somebody musical, and you would always gravitate to see that.
Yep.
You'd wait Oh, I can't wait to see this, And then we had things like the Midnight Special that we could watch all the latest bands.
Yeah.
And that was huge. I mean, and your parents would have to let you stay up late so you could watch it.
Yeah.
And you'd beg them.
Yep.
But that's some of those first bands. I mean, I remember seeing Bachman Turner Overdrive for the first time, and they had just had their big hit out, their first hit, and I was just like, oh, this is so cool. I can't wait to play my drum set.
Your first record player when you could spend hours before bed listening to that album over and over,
Yeah.
Don Kirshner's Rock Concert.
Yep.
And there was Kansas came out of that. And Atlanta Rhythm Section came out of that show. There were some bands you're like, oh, well, these guys are pretty good. And then a year and a half later, you're paying ticket prices to go see them, and they're kicking out great tunes.
Yeah.
They're on the radio.
Well, and, if you go to YouTube, you can see a lot of that stuff now and go back, and those bands were playing live. It wasn't like Bandstand where they'd, lip sync to the music. They were really playing, and you found out who was good and who wasn't. Same thing with Saturday Night Live. As soon as the band hits Saturday Night Live, if they're good or not.
Yeah, I mean, you can say that up until, what was it? Was it Ashley Simpson?
Yeah.
Yes,
Oh, yeah.
Got caught doing
that.
the lip sync thing. But and that was like you're saying though, like music being the most popular thing ever. I remember growing up, and I grew up just before like internet era, before email, before all that. So like the first part of my life, I remember that, and it's just you go over to people's houses and it'd just be walls of music, and it was always all about what's on the radio and what are you listening to and all this other stuff. And then kind of the internet kind of started truncating that with the downloading of music. I think it kind of cheapened its value.
I agree.
That's something I still think the internet's trying to recover from and find a way around that, because if you look at it objectively, like Spotify just kind of stepped in the middle, and they're the new Napster, in all honesty.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, because the artists aren't getting paid for squat for what's going on there.
No, it's rough, and that's what's leading a lot of artists. They'll put their stuff on there and never advertise it. They'll say, "Here's my album on iTunes if you want to buy it." But if you can come upon it and find it, they'll go ahead and listen to it. And I mean, I even talked about that recently with Clint Riedel, where he's just like, I don't know, I don't like to tell people it's on Spotify, but and he said the best part about that was the whole fact that people actually, if you tell them that they can buy it, people will actually go buy it, though, because they want to support what you're doing. And I feel like there's a little bit of that turning back around, though, as far as the music scene around here.
I think CD sales rely mostly, at least for smaller artists like Clint and myself and whoever's writing. I think that's going to be, your sales are going to be at your shows.
Yeah.
Because they're right there, they're in the moment, and they're liking what they hear, and then you can extend that out to them. Mm-hmm. And I think that's a good way to promote that. I just signed up for, I bought new studio software, and so now I'm on SoundCloud because of it, but I also signed up for GarageBand, which I've never done before. Mm-hmm. So there's going to be a steep learning curve for an old guy. To try to figure all of that out. I have no idea what I'm doing with that stuff yet.
Oh, I think you guys are pretty capable of that kind of stuff. Like, as far as even traversing the internet, you always seem to have flyers and events for every one of your shows. Like, as far as the Kris Karr Band goes, you got a Facebook page. I mean, you got a website. So I mean, you've got it all out there. It's there for people to see. And for anybody listening, just scroll down into the description section. I'll put a link to as much stuff that they'll let me, I guess, so you can find all their stuff super easy as far as going to see them live, booking them, whatever. We were talking I'm kind of just going down the line here, talking to everybody about what's going on as far as like how long they've played music and where they started and stuff. And Brad's been the silent guy in the podcast for the most part, so. You play bass, and Kris Karr Band. Is bass your instrument of choice? Is that where you started? Or did you start as a drummer too?
No, I did not. I'm the oddball. I did not have aspirations of being a drummer.
Okay.
He does play, though.
A little bit.
Yeah.
I have a couple beats I can pound out, but that's about it. No, I really didn't start playing bass until I was probably 26, 27 years old.
All right.
And I'm only 30 now, so. Well, they can't see me. Anyway. Actually,
Way to go, Amy.
yeah. I have a good hairdresser, by the way. It's my wife. Thank you, Amy. No, I started playing bass at a church, actually.
Oh, cool.
It was a New Covenant church. The pastor, this would have been in the early 90s, mid-90s. He's like, hey, do you want to... And he'd heard me play keys at a outreach thing we had downtown. So I had a little bit of experience on keys, but it really wasn't my thing. Mm-hmm. Yeah, started... He just asked me one day, he's like, hey, do you want to try playing bass? And I was like, yeah, okay, sounds great, you know. And I think I was playing, I don't know, I think they gave me like 2 or 3 weeks to learn it. And yeah, I just kind of fell in love with the instrument and, you know, started learning, you know, on VHS tapes even.
Oh, wow.
Oh, yeah. You know, watching some things on Larry Graham and just some different bass players. But yeah, I just really fell in love with the instrument, fell in love with it, and been playing bass ever since. So,
Cool.
Yeah.
Do you ever play in a band after the church, but before Kris Karr? Or?
There was a few, but nothing that ever evolved to anything.
All right.
You know,
well,
a couple shows here and there, but.
All right.
Yeah, I've played with some talented musicians. Tony Brown, he used to be in the area.
Okay.
Super. I think he's in. Is he in?
He is over in
Dubuque.
Somewhere out Dubuque. Yeah, that's right.
He works.
But fabulous guitar player. And yeah, I wish he would have stayed in the area. That would have been cool. Mm-hmm. But yeah, not really. I mean, there was a few, like I said, a few that didn't really amount to much. Mostly church stuff. So.
Yeah, you know, as far as playing
Consistent.
as far as playing in a church though, like that was one of the first places I, you know, got my chops as far as like learning how to play guitar. It was just like, can you play something with a little bit of distortion that sounds a little bit like this church music? And it's like, yeah, I can play open chords or play power chords that sound like that, and have it just go away in the background. We'll play it for some youth stuff, so the kids are like, dude, this rocks, you know.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Yeah.
So you plug in the cheap combo amp and away you go. But like, I felt like learning in a church environment was very low pressure. You're not trying to shred anything. Everything's nice and slow paced. And, you know, that kind of, you know, it's conducive to learning as far as I'm concerned.
It is. And yeah, just, you know, as different songs come out, you're just playing most of the time. You know, there's originals that we've done too, but for the most part, you're listening to something, mimicking it, and yeah, that's really how I've learned.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
I mean, that's probably one of the benefits each and every one of you has, is you probably learn to play by ear as opposed to learning how to play by tabs or just leaning on the internet and some guy just being like, you just play it like this. And that's, you know, because I mean, there's so many YouTube videos out there where some guy's just taking a videotape of his fretboard and just putting it online and slow-moing it.
Yep.
Which is awesome.
Oh,
I mean,
it is.
It's easy
I've learned some stuff that way too in more recent years. But yeah.
I mean, I'd like to get each one of your opinions. What do you think? Do you think it was better for you guys musically for growth to play and try and learn things by ear than it was to kind of use the internet and lean on somebody? Because I mean, I've had this debate even with myself, but I've had it with other people where it's because I mean, it's almost like you have an instructor at your disposal at all times on the internet, but at the same rate, you can't really communicate with that person.
Right. Right.
Yeah, back when I started, there wasn't any internet, it just wasn't, and
There wasn't even videos.
so my brother was in bands, and the guitarist in those bands let me hang around, you know, and if I wasn't playing, I was their sound guy or their roadie.
Yep.
But I learned from them, you know, and my brother-in-law, which I still play with, he was in one of those bands, and he plays upside down and backwards. So I had to learn what he was doing first.
Yeah.
But once I did, I learned a lot from him.
Okay.
And he was way more accomplished than me and learned tons from just being there, you know. So I think that's more important, to get out there and play it and do it with the people that are doing it better than you, if you can.
Yep.
And now, as far as the internet goes, it's a great tool. I've used it recently. I don't use it much because it's not in my schedule.
All right.
But boy, when I'm searching for something special that I don't have on a song, boom, go there.
Makes
It'll get it
sense.
quick. And it's not always correct.
Yeah.
You know, you have to make that choice in your mind. Is this really correct? But you can go back to the original artist and try and find some live stuff. Done that too.
Yeah.
You know? But yeah, back in the day, there was no internet. It was GarageBand Central.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I've done a little bit of that, though, as far as, like, sitting around other people. More recently, like, when I started going to jam nights and things like that, or having some of my buddies come over, and it's like, you just put a backing track on and take turn playing licks to it, and then you're just like, oh, that was neat, do that again, you know, and, you know, just stuff like that. But as far as, I'm trying to find a nice analogy for people that don't understand what it's kind of like, because I feel like, it's like you said, if you're looking for something special, you can find it in a heartbeat, but if you're just plugging in those something specials over and over and over again, you're not really using your own brain power to manipulate it in any fashion. Maybe it's kind of like bringing food to a buffet. If you got to make all the food and then all of a sudden you're like, I didn't make, you know, chicken, and you go get KFC chicken, someone might notice, you know. But if you just put some biscuits in there, someone's like, whatever, you know, no one's gonna notice that. I don't know, but that'd be probably my analogy for that, I guess.
Well, I think most of us are mostly self-taught, are we not? I mean,
Yeah.
so who's had lessons of any kind? No.
Well, there you go.
I'm originally I'm a drummer, and so I took drum lessons, but you know that's once a week. You're going to practice out of your book, and you're going to learn your beats. But once you've got those down, then you're going to experiment. And I was always experimenting. But I also, back to my headphones, you know, I'd put those Panasonic headphones on, have them plugged into the stereo with the 8-track player. Yeah, there you go. That's my age anyway. Or a record or whatever. And I bought a little Radio Shack mixer, and I had a couple microphones, and I put them over the top of the drum set so that I could hear myself. And then I would jam with records. And that's how I learned how to play a lot of the stuff that I do. But then I hooked up a microphone for my vocal, and I was always singing harmony. My dad was a super strong harmony singer, and I never realized that it didn't occur to me that I was learning from him, listening to him sing, you know, but apparently so. So I would practice singing harmony parts until they sounded right, and I always wanted my vocal to sound exactly like their vocal, if I could make it, so that it would blend. I mean, I knew at times I wasn't going to be able to, but if I could make it blend really smoothly, I would hone in on that. But the guitar thing, I'm like you guys, I'm self-taught, but my reason for learning guitar wasn't to actually go and gig. It was actually to write songs, and then one thing led to another, and I really didn't focus hard on guitar. I probably have focused a lot harder on it over probably these last few years, because now I'm comfortable enough playing it. Now I can actually pay attention to it. Whereas before, when I started off, it was so uncomfortable, and my self-confidence was really not there. It took forever. I mean, it's such not a natural instrument for me. I'm probably more of a drummer. But still, I mean, I love it. I think it's a fascinating instrument. I love how you can sit down and figure out your harmony parts for vocals, or that you can sing with it, you know, and blend with it.
Yeah, I think that's probably the one thing the drums have that's like the downfall, is they don't really have like a whole lot of harmony capabilities unless you start really adding a bunch of toms and tuning them to those fashions. But like, you know, with a guitar, you can plunk stuff out and be like, well, if this is the chord I'm playing, I can play this note. You know, you start singing along with the different notes, and before you know it, you can make a whole song using just one instrument.
Well, even all the effects that you can have for a guitar. I mean, you know, acoustic guitars, you don't really have a ton of effects for that. You're going to use chorus, delay, reverb, predominantly. But for electric guitar, I mean, you look at all the different pedals that electric guitar players have had over the years. I mean, of course you've got your overdrive and distortion, but and kind of the standard effects. But now you've got like these keyboard pedals, like Bruce has got that B9 pedal,
Oh yeah.
which is really cool.
Almost turns the guitar into a synthesizer.
Yeah.
You know? It's
then-
kind of wild.
And then back in the late '90s, early 2000s, Digitech had their whammy pedal.
Yep. Oh, that's a fun
Yep.
one. That's a fun one.
And that made for some interesting things. And then, some 12-string effects and that kind of thing. So you got tons of effects, a lot of keyboard effects now. I mean, they have not just organs, but keyboard, pianos, et cetera, et cetera. Mm-hmm. And even for bass, there are effects for bass. But for drums, you really have to, you either buy an electronic kit, which I'm just really not down with, and I don't think Scott is either, but you went out and you bought more drums. There were the cymbals that you liked, or cowbells, or what have you, and then expanded your sound that way by taking up lots of stage space, which, I was as guilty of that as anybody.
Yeah, I was going to say, I saw a picture of your
Yeah.
drum set.
The only thing missing was the gong.
Yeah. I mean, and I wanted one, But I mean, drums are so cool because a simple snare drum, you can get so many different sounds out of a snare drum just by the way you hold your stick and stuff. And there's so much variance in kick drum sounds and tom sounds. It's just really cool. So as a guitar player now, I don't care if Scott brings all 45 of his drum kits to our shows. Would you care to elaborate on that, Scott?
16.
16.
Actual number.
Boy,
So
And
we've,
he's
cut 'em
got
in
his
half.
eye on number 17.
so we've gone through most of the people in the band. Chris started out as a drummer, now plays guitar.
Brad has some other projects he has to tell you about.
Yeah.
All right.
Most recently, and this thing, we're just trying to get it off the ground. I'm working with some guys in Des Moines, actually south of Des Moines in the New Virginia area.
All right.
Trying to get a grunge band together.
Oh, cool.
So yeah, and that's been, I try. I don't know. I listen to all types of music, and I try to play a variance. There for a while, I was, with the Kris Karr Band, and also playing rapcore.
Okay.
Which it's like Rage Against the Machine kind of stuff, and just the two completely different genres.
Yep.
But you can glean a little bit off of each one of them and incorporate them, and it just, I think, advice to any other musicians out there: just listen to everything and try to play everything, and take the parts you like, and quit poking me, Scott. Take the parts you like and spit out the ones you don't. XL and DBD, if you ever get a chance. It's a fun band to listen to. He's got some great stuff.
All right.
But yeah, this is my primary band, I will say, and I really enjoy being able to play with the level of talent of these guys. So.
Yeah, we'll have to say, like, along those lines, playing different styles definitely does up your game quite a bit. I started playing just a bunch of open chord stuff, as everyone does when they first start playing, but then it was punk music, and then after that I kind of started playing some metal music, and I joined the band Three Finger Betty, and after that I joined the band Unity, which is a lot more metal-ier, but I started realizing, like, man, my chops are getting a lot better not just playing power chords all the time, and then you start to realize, well, maybe I can add a couple things that I'm using over here in this other band that a whole different audience will get to see, and it just adds a little bit more depth to this.
Yeah, absolutely.
One of the things I think I learned from playing different types of music was, this is nothing against anybody that plays down-tuned guitars, because I do play in a band that has down-tuned guitars, but I started playing metal music, and I started looking at some people that would play like 6-string music and make it sound heavier, and I was like, how do you do that without down-tuning everything? And there's different tricks and tips you can use that some other people have, so I started incorporating that in the punk band, and people are just like, oh, you're kind of heavy sounding. It's like, well, it's all standard tuning, so... But that kind of, I like being able to trick people's ears with that, or throwing something else in there. Even as far as like, you know, Three Finger Betty, we've got like one song that's all like mostly just clean. Like you said, there's lots of chorus and reverb and delay into everybody's guitars, and it's really, really kind of a slower song, but you have to pull something else out. You can't just throw distorted power chords in there and expect it to sound good. So
well, it's similar to watching a movie or a play. If you just keep everybody on edge the whole time and just keep all this tension, everybody's like, you can feel their shoulders, you know, just you can watch a room of people just like, if you don't change the tune to something that's a little more relaxed or something different, it doesn't let the audience breathe. Because they're sitting there the whole time on edge. And even in like a horror film or whatever, there's that moment where that moment is over and everybody goes they get, you know, and then they can relax, and then you know, maybe, you know, start that flow again, and you build people up, and then, you know, it's like, okay, everybody's getting that tension again. And that's what we try to do with within our gigs. You know, we look at the set list and like, I mean, we have pages of tunes that we can pull off, and you know, it's like, okay, let's throw this in and back this off a little bit. Or you'll watch the room and they're calling for more of the, you know, they want the heavier, you know, to press that. And it's like, I mean, we played a gig last year to where this, I mean, we were just following the set list, and it was in a smaller area, smaller group of people. Say, okay, well, we'll do this. And finally this guy comes up and he goes like, man, I want to dance. And man, you need to get up there and wind stuff up. And his buddies were just like, when are you going to dance? When are you going to dance? Well, then this guy gets out there, and he's the only guy out on the dance floor tearing it up. But, you know, we were just, okay, this is what you want. This is what we'll do. Yeah. And so you play that room, but, you know, you have to do that with the music, is change the flow and the, you know, and the, you know, you have really happy music. You have, okay, well, this is a more mellow tune, or this is, you know, but
be ready to react to the crowd.
To the crowd, yeah. You know, you play the crowd and what they want and what they like, and you'll find that out probably within like the first half hour, you know, 40 minutes of a gig. It's like, okay, we need to go this direction with it, and stuff. But it releases that pressure, or it builds that up to if that's what they want. So that's why, you know, your selection of tunes, always be ready to, you know, if you follow a list and that list isn't working, throw the list away and go somewhere else. The next best thing. You know?
I mean, I remember talking to you once, Scott, about this, how like you can have a show, and if everybody's really into it and you're playing a bunch of rockin' tunes, you're just like, well, nobody wants to take this break, so we're not going to take a break now. We're just going to keep playing until we feel a time there is to take a break, and sometimes there's no time to take a break. And you end up going 3-4 hours straight playing music, you know.
I think as a Kris Karr Band, our record is 5.5 hours. 5 hours.
5.5 hours.
Played a show at the Rustics for a benefit for
then they hired us again to play again.
Man, that's a pretty good deal we got. You know?
When we got to take a leak, well, you know, Brad or I will just sneak out for a song, and Kris will do an acoustic or something like that. But
that makes sense.
But it's just one tune, and then we're right back on it again for.
Yeah, that's why. You know, we'll write the list out, but we have a thing to be ready to go off list for something like that. As like we did one show where we wrote that in so that people could take a break, you know, hit the can. But you know, I stopped taking breaks when it was Jeff, Bruce, and myself with another pair of a drummer and bassist. We had decided we were not going to take breaks anymore, because you'd lose the audience.
Yeah,
they get cold, and I, you know, also realize that they really don't want to listen to music for 4 hours. You know, the old way of doing things was that you played 45 minutes and then you took a 15-minute break. But I was in one band where the leader just kept taking longer and longer breaks. I mean, we had a half-hour break and we're losing the audience, you know, and I couldn't deal with that anymore. So I said, let's not do that. Let's we'll play all the way through. And so that started. So a lot of our shows are 2 to 3 hours long, and you know, by the time you get done with 3 hours, everybody's really ready to go home. Mm-hmm. You know, even a 2-hour show if it's really intense. But we've been lucky.
I'd say most of ours are over 2.
Well, we like to. That's just it. We like to play. You know, typically somebody will book us for a 2-hour show.
The only time we've played for 2 hours when they book us for one.
Right.
That's right. That's right.
Fair enough. Yeah. Yeah, that's true though. We get going and we're like, do you want to play another song? Yeah, I want to play another song. So we'll just
we
just
say
go
goodnight, we're done more than any band I know.
Yeah.
multiple times.
But they, you know, our audiences are really appreciative. They're very kind to us, and you know, when we're doing it, we want them to feel like it's like a festival or that kind of thing, like it's a special event, you know. And I think having wineries come into play and breweries has really changed that dynamic. It's actually helped the entertainment field in that regard, because many shows now where we were just local bands have now become more or less kind of events for a lot of us, which is really nice because you feel great at the end of the show. I mean, our first shows, you know, out at Soldier Creek Winery were just wonderful. I mean, they still are. We just have a great time out there. It's really comfortable, and it's just nice to see familiar faces. But
well, in your interview with Byron, he actually said that as to where, I mean, if we get booked in a club or a club contacts us, would you be interested in playing? There's those clubs like, yeah, what are the dates, you know, or what are you thinking of? And then there's other clubs, and this, I haven't had that with this band, but in like prior bands, a club would call and it's just like, I don't want to go there.
Yeah.
Because you don't want to be the hired help.
Yeah.
well, I don't.
You know,
we don't want any
they're-
background noise.
You know, or they'll call you up and you'll go there, and it's just, and you're just, you know, you're treated like crap. And it's like, why go do that for, you know, if I'm going to go somewhere and get treated this way, it's going to be this much.
Yeah, when you show up at a job at a bar and you have to move the pool table and put the chairs and tables away just so you can have a place to set up, they weren't prepared for you.
Well, I mean, let me just put it this way. Like, I've played places that are like that, and sometimes you just roll with the punches. But other times, like you said, you just feel like the hired help. It's almost like you do all this work just to put a show on in a place, and then sometimes you even pay these people money. It's like, I'll give you, it's like $40 if you want to play here on a Saturday. I'm like, fine, I don't care, I'll do that, you know. And then it's like, you get the cut from the door, and it's barely enough to make it worth the $40 you gave them. They're like, you need to bring more people in here. And it's like, man, I paid you money just to be here, and now you're telling me that. But, you know, I get the picture. Like, it is tough to, you know, different places run different business models, and that's always been one of the most difficult thing to traverse being an artist in any capacity is making that deal and realizing, because it's not just about playing to your audience, you also got to kind of play to the places that will kind of get you, you know?
And there's a third thing to that, too. We recently did a Christmas party where one of our members, Jeff, came up sick. He couldn't attend. So it turned out to just be a 4-piece job, and it was still the Kris Karr Band. But we were 3 songs into the job, and Chris's voice went to crap.
Yeah, Jeff and I ended up with pneumonia. He ended up in ER with pneumonia and influenza.
So not only are you trying to play to what the crowd wants you to be, you know, want to hear sometimes, or you want to play to the venue sometimes, but we played to what we could do that time. And Bruce and I kept swapping songs all night. And Bruce and I mean, I thought it was the coolest thing because it was the Kris Karr Band doing not Kris Karr Band songs.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
That's pretty cool way to look at it too. Like playing to whatever your current capabilities are given the situation, you know.
And so we filled a full, hour and a half to 2 hours of songs that, we'd done a couple of them before, but.
Well, and you know what really helps, and I'm going to toot these guys' horns for them. You've got some really fine singers here. These guys are all very good singers, you know, and you know lots of tunes, and you all play in different bands, and have over the years. So you've got all that background like I do. So it's just like when we go to sing something, we don't really have to think about it because we've sang so many different songs. All we just need to know is the words. We know where we're going vocally with it, so we can just jump into each other's songs, no matter if we've played it together before or not, and pull off harmonies. We can just look at each other. Well, you take the third, I'll take the fifth, and plead the fifth for Scott. Anyway. Okay.
To go back to your pool table, moving that, I had a buddy one time who wouldn't do that. They moved the pool table for him eventually because he started setting his kit up on the pool table.
Oh, we did that. We did that in Renwick.
Yeah, he asked first, you guys got any plywood?
riser.
And they said no, and he goes, okay. And he sets his kick drum. What are you doing? This is where I need to sit.
That's hilarious.
Yeah.
That's a way to get him to move.
Yeah. I mean, but you know, that's also one of the things I felt like I wanted to ask you guys. How hard was it for you to get gigs when you started compared to how hard is it now? You know, is it now one of those things where somebody knocks on the door and says, hey, do you want to play this? And back then, did you have to bug somebody to play something? Because I've always been kind of curious about
It's still hard to get gigs at times because, well, there's so many more solo songwriter or solo gigs out there, so much more of that now than there is actually of band gigs. In fact, I was just talking to a friend the other day, a casino that his band used to play at shut all the bands down. They don't like drums. How could you not like drums?
On.
So they decided to go with acoustic solo and duo music, and I'm like, nobody's going to want to, well, I shouldn't say nobody. I know that I wouldn't want to sit there in that smoky environment and then, you know, listen to bells ring constantly, because that's not really happening.
Yeah. Yep.
You know, that goes back to the what is so great about wineries and breweries is those are events. You're not background noise like you are in a bar. Typical bar kind of gig is not like that in many cases. I don't want to say that it's not starting to lean more that way, but it's not quite the same thing as the brewery, winery gigs.
Yeah, I mean, I can feel that though, because like you run into a situation. I've been to shows here in town where it's like, well, we've got this place set up for music and stuff, but like you said, it's mostly solo acoustic or like acoustic with a bass, you know, something like that. Mm-hmm. And maybe it's not the fact that they don't like drums, but some of it is just the space isn't conducive to a full band. So some places,
sometimes,
that's just what they choose to have.
And at times we're faced with that. So we've had, you know, we had to do a couple gigs here this last year where we had to break it down to more of a confined sound. You know, we had to blanket Scott's kit, you know, just really drop the volume any way that we can, because now, you know, we switched to on-ear, you know, in-ear monitors, and then have eliminated physical amps on stage, which is, it's great for the audience because it eliminates that force of sound killing them mm-hmm. essentially at some gigs. It also tightens us up better, but we're not willing to give up live drums. It just, no. I'm not.
No.
There's just...
and I still haven't given up my amp.
No, you got it in a box now. But still...
Put it in an isolation cabinet.
I mean, would you have ever seen, you know, back then, would you ever have imagined that we'd be doing that now?
No. But it's all for good.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's all for good.
It's tightened our... You know, we noticed, because we record our gigs, and we'll play them back at a practice sometimes, and we can hear the difference between when we were using wedges, you know, traditional monitors versus in-ears, and it's...
Well, you know, the older your ears get,
yeah,
the more abuse. I mean, wow.
Oh, definitely.
Where I spent 13 years playing next to the loudest keyboard player on the planet, and my left ear is shot.
What we're saying is wear earplugs.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, that's something especially for drummers. If you're going to sit down at a drum set, practice, do any of that stuff, put on earmuffs of some sort, because I mean you can't sustain practicing for hours a day, you know, for years on end. Your ears are going to get toasted.
Yep. And when I practice at home, I play loud. I just love it, mm-hmm. you know. But you can only take so much of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What?
Well, when I'm in here and I practice or I'm working on a tune, like even doesn't matter if it's an electric guitar or the drum set, I'll put headphones on.
Yep.
Because it's just too much now.
Yeah, the in-ear monitors, headphones, they really save you. They just save you.
Yeah, well, they also save you. We don't strain as hard vocally. Not only that, but the new gear that's out, you know, the digital mixers, they really can keep your vocals nice and steady. It just has changed the way everything sounds so much.
When we were using wedges, I would get mine turned up so loud that it was, and if you're in a tight confined area, you're interfering with the person standing next to you, and then you're trying to well, if you're going to be having yours at this level, I can't hear what I'm doing. Yeah. So it's like this competition.
Well, then it bleeds back into your mic, which bleeds into the other guy's mic.
And when I was running sound, my goal was to get them as loud as I could before feedback.
Yeah.
Period.
Yeah.
I mean, that's not a good thing.
No.
But that was my goal. Get them loud and clear and no feedback.
Yeah. But it's all changed now, and I think it's changed for the better. And it certainly has, being older guys that we are now, I think I added it up, and I think we shed about 2,000 pounds of weight out of the trailer just by switching. Well, you don't have the monitors themselves. You don't have any of the cabling.
Yeah.
You don't have
Monitor
the power
amps.
amps.
Yep.
And the rack that carries them. And then in my case, I don't have an amp. And at times, Brad doesn't carry an amp. Bruce still carries his amp, but his amp isn't that big. I mean, it's just it's a lot of weight that we don't have to deal with. Plus, the way we're doing things now, setup takes not very much time, and sound check takes even less. It's really just a matter of turn it on. We figure out where the low end might be kind of wonky, and adjust that, and then just really sort of go.
So you guys have gone almost completely digital, except for Scott, who's still playing a drum set.
Old school.
Old school.
Thank God.
Yeah. Wouldn't change that.
Thanks, Scott.
I bought an electronic kit. I used to travel for a living, and when I'd come home for a few days, I thought that was what I needed to do to practice in the basement. So I bought it, and I think I paid like $320 for it, cheap set. And over 3 years, whatever it was, I think I put maybe 2 hours of playing on it. It just wasn't. It wasn't a drum kit.
Yeah.
So I ended up selling it for $300. I lost $20 over a 3-year investment. And
that's not too bad for a loss over 3 years.
I should also just include, we did try to put Scott and his drum set inside a box, but soon realized after about 5 minutes he couldn't breathe.
Air holes, people. Air holes.
Sorry, my bad.
If you're going to poke air holes, make sure he's not in the box.
Hey!
So, Scott, you've been relatively quiet for the most of this podcast, and I'm assuming it's because you've come on here before, but I'm sure stuff has changed. You've maybe added a drum kit, maybe. Do you have like a favorite drum kit? Do you have like one kit you bring most places that's just like...
No, I have a favorite drum kit. It's one that I had built to my specifications back in 2004. And that's my favorite kit of all.
Yeah.
But
that he never brings out.
About once a year, I'll play it.
Makes sense, yeah.
But I've got total count right now is 16 kits. But I have about 8 to 10 that I use in my rotation that I'll bring. If I play 2 jobs in a day, the evening job, I got a different kit than I had there earlier today.
That's fun.
And some people might say, well, how do you keep them all and they all sound well? First of all, I analyze, or I think about where the venue is, what the band is, what I'm going to be playing, and it determines what kind of kit I'm going to be using.
Yes.
I made a bad call this fall. I had a kit that I bought that I played with Kris down at Sneakers, big 24-inch. I mean, low end. It was awesome. And just fabulous sounding kit. And I took that to a country show that I did up in Jackson. And it was absolutely the worst plan I'd ever made. I should have rethought that and maybe take a fusion kit or something like that.
I'm really glad that you can admit those things now. I mean, because admitting that you have 16 kits is part of getting help.
Well, I for 23 years I played the same single drum kit because that's what I could afford. I couldn't go out and buy another one. Now, 33 years later, whatever it is, I'm not wealthy by any means, but I can go afford, what I make in money playing music goes right back into my music. Either that or vacation. And there's a reason. The reason I have 16 drum kits is because I can.
Yeah. I mean, you also, I I mean, like you said, it's not like you're a rich man. I bought 16 brand new drum kits. You and I do the same thing when we buy gear. A lot of times we hunt it down. We try to find something that we want. You go negotiate a little bit with the person, and you find something that you can like. A lot of it's used gear we find.
Or some of you buy a music store and.
Yeah. In all my life, I've purchased.
Just want to say that's a bad idea.
That's a different kind of problem.
I've bought and sold some kits through the years, but as a brand new drum kit, I've only purchased 2 in all my life.
Yeah.
What I do is I watch Craigslist and Facebook, and I lowball guys.
Yeah.
If they want to sell them for lowball price, I'm your guy.
Yeah. I mean, and that makes sense though, because I bet drums might even have a higher propensity than guitar for resale value. Yeah, there's probably more guitars out there that kids give up on playing, or somebody's like, I want to learn how to shred like Metallica, and they go buy some super cheap thing, and they're like, no, I don't want this. But I bet the number's higher for drums. I bet there's a lot of people looking to offload drums, maybe even just based on the amount of space they take up.
Everybody's criteria for what you want in a drum set is different.
Yep.
For me, hardware really important. It's got to take lots of abuse, and there's a lot of kits out there that they just don't.
Yep.
Probably the most important things on a drum kit are snare drum and a kick, how they sound. The rest is important. I don't want to say that it's not, but
I've never, like I said, I've never had a drum lesson. Never been taught how to tune my drums, other than through the years learning and watching and seeing what other guys are doing, and catching on to that. And when I was in a teenager, hell, it was duct tape. That's how you tune them, duct tape and felt, under the heads.
I played with guys that did not tune their drums.
And today they make the moon gels and O-rings, things like that help you. And that's what I've leaned to is not technology, I guess, but the latest thing, and it works for me.
There's a lot better selection of heads out there too.
Yes,
you can find
absolutely.
That's one thing that's come along that has been developed, or people have looked into, to where instead of buying all these little things that you need to put on them to get the tone you want, you can actually buy a specific head that'll give you like a real dry sound or real crisp.
Yeah.
Or you can put that type of head on a snare, and and just like it just has that crack sound when you hit it, and and that wasn't available years ago.
No, I mean, I like, you have those E-rings that you put on your snare or your toms or whatever, and we didn't have those. So like, I remember to get that kind of sound, I wanted this really kind of clicky sound out of my snare. So what I would do is remove the head, had an old head, and I'd cut. I always used double ply heads, and I would cut the underside out from under there of that head, and I would take packaging tape and then tighten it as best I could, but fasten it underneath the new head so that when I struck it, it would that piece of head would slap.
Yeah.
But it would also deaden the head.
Yeah.
So,
Wow.
But we did stuff like that. I mean, I remember umpteen country bands where a guy had Kotex's duct tape to his toms to kill the ring.
I've seen that.
I used to
Tricks of the trade. Kids.
Yeah, I used to take a pair of jeans, an old pair of jeans, and I'd cut it right up the seam. I'd cut the leg off the pair of pants, and then I'd split that wide open, and I'd take that and put it
across the head,
kick drum head.
Oh.
Because back when I was playing in the 70s, you didn't want bottom heads and you didn't want a front head on your kick. So I'd put that across, and I'd write the band name across my pant leg,
For a second, I thought you were going to say back in the day, you used to cut off your pant legs.
Yeah, and just wear the one.
Just play your shows
he
that
did
way.
that.
Yeah.
I know he did.
True.
Leg.
Yeah.
But, I mean, that's something, I guess, not being a drummer, I never really thought too much about, was like what everyone would want in a drum set. Like you said, hardware is something I hear a lot of drummers talking about, where it's like, I can't just be going out there with, and I'm not trying to trounce on a brand, but like just some junky Gibraltar stuff that comes with a learner's kit, because after a handful of shows of tightening and loosening, it's just going to kind of junk out.
Well, as drummers, you watch other drummers and you see what they use, and it will inspire you. Like Scott, for instance, he has arguably the coolest drum throne I've ever seen, and that's that one that's the saddle. Is it a tractor saddle or something?
It was a mechanic's seat. It's like a motorcycle seat, like a Harley seat, but it's on a stool like a regular throne. And
That thing is cool.
It needs stirrups. It just needs a set of stirrups.
Yeah. Giddy up.
It's cool because it's got all the studs and everything around it, and it looks like a saddle, and it's
Well,
it works.
yeehaw.
It's something that like intrigues me, I guess, is the fact that you're talking about going completely digital for the most part with your band. You still have an amp, Bruce, that you use. Do you still run it into a speaker of any sort, or
Yeah, I keep the speaker in an isolation cabinet, so I can get as loud as I want and get the breakup I want out of the amp, but it's quiet on stage.
All right.
Yeah.
Is that just preference? You don't really want to give it up quite
yet?
Or?
Kris has got a new kind of a preamp digital system for his guitar that sounds really good straight into the PA. And I just haven't spent the money there.
It's tough, I'll be honest with you. Most all of those, the Kempers and Line 6s, they're great and everything, but it really isn't like playing through a full amp. I do miss that part, but in this particular band, my guitar parts are secondary, or primary to keeping rhythm, and having Bruce go over the top of that, and so it's not as important for me to have that connection with my amp to create sustain on a particular note.
Yeah, that's what you miss. Talk about the internet. I've been watching, looking up stuff with the bands that they call them rig rundowns for.
Yep.
I love those.
Premier Guitar.
Yep. I love them.
And been checking out these guys that have gone in-ear monitors and no amps on stage, and they're getting the Fernandez sustainers so they can have some feedback. And it's like, wow, you just want to be able to have that interaction with the speaker, where it's ringing nicely, and so that's what you miss, and the kind of things that you try to work around, still working on it. It's a work in progress.
The only real the real advantage of like the system that I'm on is that because I play acoustic and electric, I have one cable.
Yeah.
So I can just grab a guitar, put it in, switch to that patch.
Yep.
And because you really don't play acoustic guitar through a regular guitar amp. It just doesn't work out well.
Yeah.
But that's the one thing that's really nice, and I just have that consistency when we go in to do sound check. We don't have to fight with anything. The only thing that we're really checking thoroughly is the drum kit, because that's got the most mics on it.
That's the most acoustically
diverse.
Yeah.
And so we might have a tom that's ringing on a note that is resonant with the room, so we'll have to either change the pitch of the tom or gate it more, and then we just set it that way and we go. But prior to digital consoles, that would have taken a long time to deal with, and now it's you grab that tablet, and call up the curve you want.
But like, as far as a bass for you, Brad, was it something difficult for you to be like, all right, I guess I'll use this or not? Because bass seemed to lend itself a little bit better to it. There was a lot of people that have those, inputs that were just pedals, where it's like I can just plug my bass into this. It gives it all the breakup. Here's all the EQs, and then out to the mains I go.
Right. And the only thing I miss when I don't have an amp is the rumble under my feet.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
So a lot of times I'll bring an amp, but it'll be just quiet enough, and if I stay in the right spot, I can still feel it. I think Scott kind of likes it too, if he can feel it a little bit,
Mm-hmm.
But it's not necessary anymore. It's just kind of it's a preference.
Yeah.
You can get, my amp really didn't. It had a certain tone to it that I liked, and the speaker cab I like to use has it's a Aguilar 12-inch. It's nice tight focus, but it's not necessary.
Yeah.
Just going direct through a box, or sometimes I'll bring sometimes I have a pedal board, sometimes I have a digital modeling deal. So, yeah, it's I'm still trying to find
The sweet spot.
the sweet thing that's the thing, you know. But it's I really don't miss the amp when I don't have it.
It's an excuse to look for new gear.
It is.
Yeah.
It is. It is.
I'm looking for that thing.
The thing.
I don't know what the thing is, but I'm looking for it.
You know, we were doing this gig over in Cherokee, and in relation to not feeling the rumble under your feet. So my wife tells me that something's not quite right out front. So these guys are jamming a tune. So I go off stage to go listen. I pull my ears out and figure out what it is and correct it. And I go hop back up on stage, you know, and we're up on 2 flatbed trailers, and the speakers are down on the ground and stuff. And so that's where all the low end is. And none of that is making it back up to the stage. You know, and I step back up on stage, and the only thing that's making noise is the drum set. And you guys are all singing away, and I can't hear anything. So I put my ears back in it, and I'm like, wow.
There we go.
Yeah. It was pretty interesting.
Yeah.
So it's an odd thing with the first time you experience that. If you're watching a band play and there's no
because
wedge coming back, everything's out front. Because you get behind that, and all you hear is some guy pounding on drums.
Yes.
And there's nothing there. And it's the first time I noticed that was that you're just standing there going like, where is everything?
Yep.
And it's all
out front
in their ears, you know.
Between
So
their
it's like you
ears.
watch that for about 5 minutes, like, well, this sucks, and you go back out front because it's like you're not hearing. You know, you kind of hear it because it's out there, but it's not.
yeah.
But the only real instrument you're hearing are those drums.
Yeah.
It's up there, and that's. You know, and you lose it. We've brought up the electronic kit, you know, a couple of times, and the one thing you miss with that, there's nothing more of a lackluster feeling when you're playing one of those, and you go to like when you have the headphones on and you hit the cymbal pad. When you don't have that on and you hit that chunk of rubber.
Yeah.
It's like there's no give, there's no feel, that's what a real kit
It's like
provides.
hitting the top
it's like,
of your guitar amp with a stick.
I would
Yeah,
think the
it's-
expression, like say on the snare, you know, so much expression with what you're doing to it, and if it's electronic, you have one sound.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah, it's
you can't
like-
rim shot. You can't.
Well, I got a chance to go see the Moody Blues. A friend of mine had an extra ticket, so he took me down there to Des Moines, and we went and watched them. It was a fantastic show, but
Was that recently or like 5 years ago?
Yeah, about 5 years ago.
Oh, I went and saw that.
Did you?
Yeah.
Okay, and
I saw it in Canada though.
okay, yeah. And that guy comes out on stage, you know, the original drummer, and I think he was in his 80s. And then they have another drummer, but he's on a Roland electronic kit that has the pretend bass drum. But, you know, I'm watching that guy play, and he's working his butt off. He's still doing everything that a normal drummer does. But that kit just was so boring. And I just remember going, wow.
Yeah.
I'm going to watch the guy that's 80 on the real kit.
Yeah.
Because that's a heck of a lot more interesting, you know. So I just cannot get into and the other thing too, I just don't care for their sound. It's like it's too hyped, too pumped up compared to a real kit. It's just a totally different thing.
Yeah, and I mean, electronic drum kits have come a long ways compared to 20 years ago, compared to 30 years ago. I mean, compared to 10 years ago even, they've come a long ways. And they've started making drum kits that have a little bit more variance when you hit the pads different ways. But like you said, your feel in your hand doesn't translate to your body very well. You said, you hit the cymbal and it's just plonk. You know, there's nothing to it. It's kind of tough, but I mean, that's probably the one instrument I feel like, as far as going digital, is the farthest behind, and probably justifiably so, because, like you said, it's the most acoustic. There's not really any effects you can stack on it to mask the natural sound of it.
I don't want to say that someday they won't, you know, figure it out, but I think just the variance, and like we were talking about a snare drum, is so great. How do you write all of those parameters in for touch sensitivity? Because it's not just about touch, but it's how, like, you've got two things going on there: the rim, three things: the stick, because depending on the weight of the stick, what you're using 5B, 7A, that makes a difference in how the whole thing sounds. Head, yeah.
Yeah, the wood block.
Yeah.
Or you bounce the stick or you don't.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's
You lose
there's
those
a lot
tricks.
going on there.
Like if you're doing a wood block, that click on the edge of a
And that all
snare.
has to do with the stick
Yeah,
and how
and
the
that,
snare's tuned.
and when it's rubber, you can't get that
No.
that click sound.
Yeah, and like I think this is probably the stuff that maybe like non-musicians don't ever think about. They don't ever have to really, but like this is the kind of stuff that you have to think about before going to shows. Like you said, what drum kit am I even going to bring here? Do I bring the giant drum kit that's just going to blow out the tiny room that doesn't even fit the music I'm playing? Or like sometimes it's a crapshoot. Sometimes you've never been to a location before, so you're just guessing. You know?
And that's not always true. The bigger is louder or whatever. Because I got that little bop kit that 16-inch bottom is.
It's really long though.
It's
That's a great sound.
it kicks ass.
Yeah.
I can play a big room with that thing and not be afraid at all.
That's awesome.
Played in a band one time. A guy bought a John Bonham kit,
Okay.
and I mean it had like a 26-inch, 28-inch deep, and he had this cymbal. It was for his ride cymbal. It's like this 30-inch garbage, And we played this room that was probably.
Oh, I remember that. Yeah.
It was. I mean, if I stood up straight, my head touched the ceiling, and there was soundproofing up there, and the guy had put egg cartons up there, to help with the sound. And the drummer was on this riser, and he couldn't stand up straight because the riser was too close to the ceiling. But you couldn't move from in front of your mics because this kit was just so massively big. And he's back there pounding it. The minute you stepped away from in front of your mic, it created feedback. And so it's like, you've got to bring the right kit to the right room. And in his defense, he didn't know that this was going to be the room because he just bought this kit and he really wanted to play it. Yeah. And you can't blame anybody for that.
No.
I have this gear and I want to play this, and we go into this room that's like the size of a phone booth, and there's 5 of us in there, and you're shoulder to shoulder, and but it was like, and he admitted, he goes, what a disaster to bring this kit to this room. I didn't realize that it was going to be that way. So
like that time that Bruce brought all those Saldano full stacks, like 10 of them, and we couldn't fit them in the back of the Toyota.
I just love those things, man.
Oh, but
we had to fire up the Pacer. He had that big trunk.
That goes back to what I said earlier. I got that, not a new kit, but a used kit, but it's new to me. Played it with Chris up here, and 2 weeks later took it to Minnesota in a big auditorium, and it was just the wrong thing to have for the type of music we were playing. It just didn't. I would have been much wiser had I thought about it and taken something different.
Yeah, and I mean, as we're all saying this is not to discourage people from even going out and bringing their only piece of gear out. 'Cause some people can only afford one guitar amp.
That's right.
Guess what? That amp is good enough to go play live. Whether or not you think it is, whether or not. I mean, like, as much as we're talking about,
You have to turn it to the wall, cover it up with a blanket. Seen plenty of that over the years, and great bands doing it too.
Yep.
I mean, great bands.
Yeah,
you just play the room. You do what you can to make it right.
Yeah. I mean, if you only got one drum set, bring it. It's good enough.
I did it for 23 years.
Yeah, and it sure worked out just fine.
And if you're on the road playing, you can't carry all that gear with you.
Yeah,
if you've got a semi and a group of roadies, and they can do that, but if you're in a touring band, it's like okay, I'm bringing this kit. Yeah,
three semis.
Three semi loads of entourage.
That was just for the wardrobe. That's true. That's actually true.
And it's like you're sitting there. So okay, they can afford to bring all that gear, but 99.9% of the guys that are out there on the road, I'm taking this kit with me, these cymbals, and I'll adjust this kit
and hope I don't need a spare.
Yeah, and then you always bring 2 snares. Yeah. Always bring 2 snares because you'll be in the middle of a gig.
Oh gosh!
And I was playing one night, and we were like three tunes from the end of the set, and all of a sudden I've got no kick. And I've shoved
I did that at practice last fall up at the shop.
Yeah,
Put my foot right through the
you
the
just
kick
you run
in.
it through there, and you've got you're
Yep,
sitting
I
there,
forgot
you're not
about
doing
that.
nothing, and everybody's looking at you what's going on, and it's like, man, we got 3 tunes, it's like, and you're running out to the vehicle and grabbing a roll of duct tape.
Yeah.
Because you don't have time to change a head.
Yep.
But if you've got that extra snare sitting down there, you can, if you pop through there, you pull that out and you put another one on, and it'll get you through. But you can't bring 10 kits.
Yeah.
And you're always gonna, you run when you're doing this. Sometimes you forget stuff. Every drummer I know has forgotten a throne or cymbals or
Sticks.
Sticks. Something.
I mean, and that just happens though too. It's like you said, on the fly, you break a snare head or something. Got to bring another snare with you. That's stuff that sometimes you don't think about until it happens, and other times there's, you have that planned obsolescence, but other times it's, you can plan as well. You're planning for a mistake that's going to happen, but it's one of those deals where I feel like breaking a guitar string might be another one, but.
That was a 4-syllable word, man. They don't do that to us. Obsolescence. I'm sitting here going, I'm gonna have to look that word up.
What's bad is when you're doing a solo gig and you forget your guitar. That's a real bummer. That happened to me. Unfortunately, I was in Badger when that happened. I called my wife up and said, "Hey, are you here? Are you on your way? Yeah, go back to town and get my guitar."
I was playing in the street band down in Des Moines at Super Toad, and it was a Thursday night, and it was just terrible. 20 people in a huge club, right?
Right.
Well, 38 Special was playing on the weekend. They show up during our gig. Well, I had forgotten my extra power supply for my pedal board, which was a rack system at the time. Mm-hmm. My power supply went out, and I'm straight into the PA. No overdrive, no effects, nothing. And here, 38 Special is in front of us at a table. I'm like, oh, this is the worst night of my life. But it's one of those things. You do what you have to do to get through a gig.
Yep.
And at least I got to shake their hands. That was pretty cool. But boy, how embarrassing for them to watch you when there's only 10 other people in the bar besides them.
Well, that's the worst. Is when you have that kind of pedal or situation for your guitar, or like your amp dies.
Yeah.
You're without.
Yeah.
Oh, it's horrible.
Yeah. That happened to me. That was the first time it ever happened. Was I was playing a metal festival just outside of Chicago not too long ago with Unity, and we're 2 songs before the end. The whole time I use one tone. It's just an overdrive pedal into an amp. But I got one song where I use a little flange type deal, And it's not 100% necessary, but it's one of those things where it's like, this kind of is featured in the studio version of the song. It might be necessary while we're playing it live, And I had a little bit of an issue with my pedal board. Couldn't figure out where the issue was at, and I couldn't figure out where the issue was at with my guitar pedal board. And either way, I had to go straight in front of the amp, and it was just one of those deals where it doesn't sound as good as it could. And it was also something where...
It's kind of a big letdown when you want to give it your best and you just can't.
Yeah. It's kind of rough. Looks like Brad's out of here for a little bit. Scott,
let's talk about Brad.
Yeah, let's.
There we go. The dirt comes out.
We did a show in Cherokee. Never mind. You're welcome, Brad. I won't tell you.
Wow.
No, but as far as the people who've been the most quiet, it's been you and Brad for the most part, Scott, and I think that's kind of Brad's nature. He likes to not do most of the talking as far as stuff like that. But
I usually like to stay quiet and be in the corner until it's time to talk, and then you can't shut me up.
Yeah, that's why I've had you on 2 podcasts.
And that's why I've been quiet today, because you've heard my story before.
Yeah,
not once but twice. You don't need to hear it again.
Well, this is for anybody that hasn't heard it. You can hear a little bit of it here if you're more interested. I've got 2 podcasts with Scott. One of them is mostly rock and picnic material, though, so check them both out. We've covered about an hour and a half here, So, if there's anything else you guys want to talk about, we can definitely talk about it here. But I feel like we've covered a decent amount as far as letting people get to know you guys. You guys all seem to get along really well, which is key in a band. That seems to be something that a lot of bands have, I mean, not necessarily issues with, but it's always hard to find that sweet spot of the exact right guys to get along with, that are, everybody's okay with everyone else's abilities and outside of the band preferences. You know, it's always kind of tough to find those people.
We were talking about venues earlier. I would bring it up. If anybody knows anybody at, whether it be at Des Moines or Mason City, Waterloo, Okoboji, hey, we're looking for jobs.
Yep.
You know, and we've got our name out there. We, you know, try to you know, send the material to get the jobs, but sometimes it takes word of mouth.
Yeah, I will have to say 100% word of mouth does a million times better advertising than any advertising dollar you can spend. It does better than Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. It does better than any of that. I can speak for that firsthand just based on having this podcast. People that talk about it make it worth a while. And that's one of the reasons I had you guys on here, because like I said, you guys as a band was one of the first bands when I was playing that I was just like, I think I'm going to start taking this seriously because these guys are good, you know. I mean, everybody goes through it when you're younger. You're just like, these guys can't play. They're just a bunch of old dudes. And then you're like, these guys kick butt, you know. And then you realize, well, like, these guys have had 20 or 30 years of playing experience ahead of me, so I got to, you know, better get after it now before it's too late. And
I think we've all been through that, though. We've watched a lot of older band, you know, guys that were our local heroes. I'm sure you did, and over in Chicago,
Absolutely.
I did in Cedar Rapids. I mean, I remember being just old enough to get into a club, and my whole band, we would go in to watch these other guys that were, you know, probably 25 years older than us, because they were that awesome. In fact, this bass player I just talked to somebody about the other day from Iowa City, his name was Dave Green, and he was our bass god. He had played, I think he did 2 tours with Gladys Knight and the Pips. I mean, he was just awesome. But the band that he was in, they were all awesome. We just thoroughly enjoyed. We wanted to be like them, you know.
Yeah, I mean, and that's just one of those things that, like, did you ever think growing up that you guys would be here where you're at today? I mean, in a band that is, I mean, I'm saying it and you guys aren't, but you guys are damn good as a band. As far as like in the area, surrounding area, you're easily one of the best cover bands. You play some of my favorite tunes, everything from like the 60s through the 80s ish. This stuff that's mostly classic rocky you play, and it's awesome.
We're just lucky enough that Scott hired us.
Yeah.
Let's not tell that story.
Right.
You know, you say that we're one of the best cover bands, but we do a lot of Kris's originals, and people know them.
Yeah.
People actually sing along to the originals. You know?
Yeah. You guys were one of the first bands, I will have to say, that played older music and then folded in originals, and you almost can't even tell. Like, if you're one of those deals where it's like, oh, I don't know if I've heard this song. Well, that's Crosby, Stills, and Nash. You're like, oh, that's pretty damn good. And then you're like, I don't know if I heard this song. Oh, Kris wrote it. And you're like, oh, son of a bitch. Like, I would have never thought that in a million years, you know? Because, I mean, it comes down to each and every one of you guys being able to play that stuff too as well. It's not just the fact that Kris wrote a song that's so awesome. I mean, Bruce, you had to play a lead part to that song, and you have to have a full band there playing all this stuff too in order to pull it off and make it sound that good. And you guys do.
Well, I think what helps when you're doing original music, in our case, I know this happened with a band that I was with, an original band up in the Twin Cities called Every Wednesday, and I remember we did this gig, and we were trying to figure out why people liked our music, and somebody told us it's because your tunes feel familiar, like we've heard them before. And maybe that's the case. Yep. I don't know.
Yeah.
And that, to me, that was kind of a compliment. That means that it measured up, I guess. And if what struck me in that particular band, we were playing a show, and I had the song called Mary, and these people had brought their kids, and they were all sitting down in front of us, and they were all singing along to the song. Mm-hmm. And that just, we were all looking at each other like,
how does that work?
How does that happen?
That's wild.
So, yeah.
That's probably one of the best feelings. Like, we throw a ton of our originals in, and you're watching the audience, you know, they're doing their thing or whatever there, but then you're playing them, and they don't realize that all of a sudden your tune comes through, and they're singing along with that tune. Mm-hmm. And when you see them take notice of that, but it doesn't stop the flow of the show because it's as consistent with what, you know, you're doing a cover here, we'll throw like 3 or 4 originals in a row, and it doesn't break the mood. People are singing along, or they start paying more attention because it's like, wait, that song sounds familiar, but I've not heard that before. Then they'll come up after the show and just like, you played this one too. And I said, well, that's one of ours. You got to be kidding me. And it's like, no, it's, we've developed this tune over the years.
We don't announce our tunes either. Typically, at first when we started doing original material, I didn't like the idea of announcing the song because I felt that if you announced your song, then you were kind of burdening your listener. You were telling them, this is my song, I need you to judge it.
Yeah.
And that's not really fair to that person in the audience because they came to watch a show and they just want to enjoy themselves. They don't. So if you don't announce it, then you can also tell a lot about your song, whether they like it or not.
That's true.
If they're paying attention to it, or if they start singing it on that second chorus, then you know you did the right thing. But that way, I don't have to. We're not burdening them with the idea that they would have to be a judge in some song contest.
Yeah, I mean, if we're all honest with ourselves, we all tend to make snap judgments, and I feel like that also eliminates the ability for anybody to make a snap judgment about this.
Well, then they're not feeling bad if they didn't like the song and feel like, oh, I thought your song was wonderful, Kris.
Yeah. And I totally get that, man. It's one of those deals where, I mean, as far as a songwriter, I am not a songwriter. I mean, I've written songs, I don't like them, they stay away from everybody's ears because I'm not good at it. So, but like that's one of those things where like, did it take you a while to get over the barrier of like writing a song and being like, all right, I'm going to show the public this song? Or is
yeah, because you like you're talking when you first start writing, you don't know what you're doing, and you're not confident, and then now you're about to wear something that really matters to you on your sleeve for anybody to slap, and so it scares you at first. I remember the first time I played one of my songs in public, it scared the heck out of me, and I didn't announce it. Thankfully, because I didn't know how it was going to go over. And to be honest with you, I can't remember how it did go over. I just remember getting through it and I was shaking. Like the first time you play on stage, that kind of, you're scared. Or like when you go to play a gig and you're really intimidated by the audience. Like say that you have your hero from another band sitting out in front of you. It bothers you. You get nervous and. But you start off, you don't know how to write, and then you eventually get comfortable with the idea. I'm not going to sit there and tell anybody that I know how to write. I write because I want to. It's in me to do that, and I hope that people like it. I hope.
Yeah. If it's any consolation to any of you guys, like I said, you guys have been one of the perennial bands, one of my absolute favorites around the northern Iowa area. Originals, covers, it doesn't matter. I've always told people you guys are one of my favorites. It's always fun to watch you guys play live in any capacity because, like we talked a little bit about earlier, like if not everybody can make it, sometimes a couple of you guys will just go to a show. Sometimes it's just 3 of you, and you guys end up with situations like that occasionally. Sometimes it's based on maybe somebody hires you and says, I just want 2 people here, and, or whatever, and you guys figure it all out and you guys go with it.
But it's all about fun, see, with us. Because it's...
We still haven't initiated
Scott. These guys, nobody has to want to play with me. I want... We just want to have fun, and we, like you say, we do really like each other. We respect each other. One of the first gigs that we did, this was before Scott came along. We're still doing the acoustic thing primarily. So we go to this club up north, or this winery up north, and so we get ready to do 7 Bridges Road, which is a part of our regular set, And Brad here is the new guy. He's
Yeah.
the new guy, and he's our baritone voice, so he does the low stuff. So for some reason, I got it in my head, wouldn't it be funny?
First of all, you carried in that big stack of towels and
Right.
playing in an air-conditioned room. Now, if
Right.
you're outside, you'll have, for sweat and it's summertime or whatever. So he brings here, you need one of these. Here, you need one of these. And I'm going, what the hell do I need a towel for? It's like 68 degrees in here.
We should have seen this coming.
Yeah.
But we didn't.
I tell you what, you go ahead and tell him. You go ahead, because you've talked the least. Go ahead.
So anyway, we all end up, I don't even know what it was whipped cream or shaving cream?
It was shaving cream.
So right before the song, I think. It was before the song.
Yep.
You're the only one with a beard, though.
Yeah. But we all end up wearing shaving cream beards, and it was just nice intimate crowd, and they're just looking at us like, what are these people
guys
doing?
Yes,
It was
they are.
priceless. It was great. But yeah, Scott still hasn't.
I say I've earned
hasn't been
right.
initiated.
I say that I've earned right not to get the initiation now because of what I pulled down at Shiny Top last month.
Oh,
The
I catch.
The pack.
The one-eyed glove.
Chris has got a song that he likes to pull in the crowd called "She's the One I Love," about his one-eyed.
It's a Haywood Bank song.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
I got a gal
I was
with
talking
one eye.
to my wife Deb one night and said, we need to trick, buy some eye patches. So we went out and ordered about 20 or 25 eye patches and distributed them amongst the crowd that night. And as soon as he started doing that tune, everybody threw the eye patch up.
So for those listeners out there that don't know that song, so the opening line is, "I've got a girl with just one eye, no depth of field, but sweet as pie." And you can look the song up. It's Haywood Banks, One I Love.
Yeah. Actually, I've heard some Haywood Banks material. He used to do stuff on the radio back in the day for, I believe, Bob and Tom.
Tom,
show.
yeah, that's right.
Oh, yeah.
So yeah, I mean, he's got some classics out there. Toast is the one. That's the big one.
All across the country, all across the coast.
So I think I've earned right not to have the initiation.
I don't know about that, but we're up there on stage, and I was like, wouldn't it be cool if we just wore shaving cream beards, on Seven Bridges Road? So I pull out, I walk back, and I grab the shaving cream, just put a big old gop of it in my hand, and then I hand it to Brad. And that was the real test. And he put it on like a trooper, and I was like, this is the guy. This is the guy. This is our guy. So.
Well, I mean, like, one of the first times I realized you guys are out there to play music and just have fun doing it was when you busted out kazoos. And it's something that you still do occasionally, and it still catches me off guard regardless, because it's usually the same song you do it, and it's always just like,
How did we come up with that?
I don't know, and I never see it coming, and it's the first time I
might have
saw it,
been
I was like,
during a
this is
practice.
genius.
Beatles.
It's the Beatles come together is what we do, but we never. It's the traditional, dun 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 dun, the bass
Come together.
come together, but then we play it with a reggae beat, with a reggae guitar.
Yeah. So that's kind of
It's weird because it works together, but instead of the guitar solo, we did 3-part harmony kazoos, and it works.
Yeah, it does.
And, it's an attention getter, and then as soon as the guitar solo, you're right back into the tune, and it's just like, and then you get the audience really gets into it, and there's and they're singing. Everybody knows that tune, It's like, oh, you screwed up the lyrics, and it's like, come on up and sing them. And I did this one night, and it's just like, and so we started playing it again. It's like, well, I don't know the words. I said, it's because they're really messed up,
Oh, they are.
It's like,
It's the hardest song to remember.
But then at the end of it, come together right now. We just stop.
Yep.
And the whole audience is singing in there, and you hear from 20 people to several hundred people all go over me.
Yep.
At the end of it, and when you're done, they just love it. So it's like, okay, which
we love too.
So then you're just like, okay, this is the way we do this tune now.
Yep. Yeah,
You know, so.
it adds like a little bit of audience participation without forcing it in there. You know, you're not like sing after me, everybody. You know, it just happens. You know, so it's kind of neat.
Yeah,
Plus,
there's
like
nothing better when you know you got the audience with you. It's like, this is great.
Yeah. And like you said about the kazoos, like you're not just doing that as a goof. It sounds good. It actually sounds really good, which is the
well. If we can make them laugh, we'll do that too. We're not going to get anywhere on our good looks.
Because it's really hard to get them to sing along with the Ohio, Iowa, Idaho, Hawaii highway.
Right. But that's probably one of the other good things about you guys is you guys have a little bit of band like inside jokey kind of things that you guys have with one another that you don't necessarily announce to people that are jokes, but it's just kind of like almost like to yourselves it's funny. It's like you're a 5-person Andy Kaufman kind of thing going up there. Maybe talk.
Or, you know, I didn't tell the whole story about
one guy.
About Brad's dirty underwear in Cherokee. So.
Hey, did we tell you what town we're from? What town are we from?
Rolling Pinpoint, Iowa.
Yes.
There it is.
So that's you know, like I said, that's look it up on a map, everybody.
It's 4 blocks long, and we have 3 roundabouts.
There you go. Scott's the city planner. No.
This week.
This week.
Rotating duties.
Yeah, this week, Brad is actually the mayor of Rolling
Point, Iowa.
Right. Good. I was tired of being in the insane asylum.
Yeah. Well, it's tough because when one of us gets sick, you have to be the town cop and the town drunk on the same week.
Yeah, but we've had to split
gig.
that up. It's just too tough now. I mean, you can't be drunk all week. You can't get anything done.
Oh my gosh! And these are the kind of things that I think are the funniest parts about, like, you know, you guys as a band. Like I've said a million times over, you guys really enjoy each other's company, and that's something that I feel like translates to the crowd because you can kind of tell if people don't necessarily get along and they're on stage together.
Yeah.
It's intangible. It doesn't always come across in the music, but it happens sometimes, and it's kind of rough. You know, it's just one of those things. I've never really been in a band with people I don't enjoy their company, so I've been pretty lucky for the most part.
Yeah, you have.
But I've always sat back and tried to be like, I'm going to pick and choose where I'm going to be here, you know, and I'm going to pick and choose what kind of stuff I'm going to put up with, which I think is one reason it took me so long to actually want to play in a band. That and my low abilities, but like still like you guys, as far as a band, you guys are, you know, one of those things I look up to as a person trying to play music. Like I just kind of, it's nice to know that there's bands that can get along as much as you guys do, have fun on the stage, off the stage, you know, and be as good as you guys are, as polished as you guys are, to be able to throw in your own stuff, to be as good as each one of you guys are. It's just kind of a fun thing to go out there and see, and I really appreciate you guys at least, you know, taking some time out of your day, coming from all across northern Iowa and a little bit farther away to come here to meet with me. It's really awesome.
Well, Rolling Pinpoint, Iowa is a big town.
Yeah.
We had to drive all the way from across.
Yeah.
We're up to 12.
All those
now.
roundabouts, I get confused.
Yeah. I mean,
You know, it's tough watching bands that don't get along.
Oh.
You know, especially the
Well,
ones.
we've all been in them, right?
Especially the ones on YouTube.
Oh.
Yeah. But, you know, there's moments that we're out there that, you know, you're playing and somebody's doing something and it just magically happens to where you have to almost stop and you're looking at what somebody else is doing and appreciating what they do, and I think that's.
Well, you and I get to laughing when something really goes.
Yeah,
good,
you know, it's like, you know, and there's all the little, you know, gimmick things and stuff, but there's those moments where like all the tones, the vocals, and everything are right, and you're looking around and everybody else is kind of going like, God, did you guys just hear that too? So, which is neat. But then we do the laughing and the joke and stuff. It was, you know, it's. Looney Tunes just crack me up.
Yeah.
You know, watching those old cartoons, like there was one day, you know, like Chris, we were pulling cables and it was like, and Chris has a spool and I've got a spool, and all of a sudden we're both just like, we can't pull them out fast enough. We didn't need all those cables. Man, we were unwinding the whole thing. It's just like, it just looked like an old cartoon, you know. It's like, you know, like, oh yeah, I'm gonna get you there and stuff, you know. But
and then the brack thing.
Oh my God!
Oh, that was hilarious.
Oh.
you got time for one more?
Okay,
story?
who's gonna tell it?
Hit me with them. Yeah.
we were playing 4th of July up in Cylinder, Iowa, and it was a great crowd. And they said, "Can you guys put on some patriotic music for the fireworks display and run it through the PA, you know. And so I went, and I've got a buddy who's a director of bands, Dan Cassidy. I said, you got any patriotic music? And he's, yeah. And he comes over to the house, and he's got like 8 CDs of like the Navy band, the Air Force band, the Army band and stuff. And there's all stuff, so I just download it all onto my iPod. It's just like, because, you know, we're about 2 hours out from having to take off, so I just throw it on there, and I put it in this, and it falls in this various artists category.
Yep.
So it's like, you know, going on during, you know, during this, all the fireworks, everybody's, and all of a sudden it just stops. Da-da, da-da, da, 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 da. Welcome to Cooking with Brack. So on tonight's show, we're making my special poo 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 platter. Some people are happy with just a little poo. Some people, they like, you know, poo poo. But I add extra poo to mine for that extra kick, and I'm like 40, 50 feet away from the iPod. And it's just...
Scott's in tears, and we're
and over all of the booming and all this stuff going off, and me trying to get there, I can hear Scott.
I get up to go, and my wife looks at me. Nah, just let it go.
And I'm hoping there's no obscenities on this thing.
Epic.
Oh my gosh.
But one of those where it's like, you know, and I'm holding the camera because I'm taking, you know, I love taking photographs. I'm trying to capture all these, and all of a sudden you're like, what the? You know?
Oh man, and that's the kind of stuff though. Like sometimes, even though you try to like work that stuff out, some of those little fun little things that happen are inevitable. You just roll with the punches and kind of go with it, and it makes a good story for later.
Yep.
You know, so
You ain't a kidding.
yeah, and it's. You know, like I said, a million times over, you guys are one of my favorite bands in the Northern Iowa area. I'm super glad you guys got a chance to get everybody together and afforded me the opportunity to sit down with you guys and talk to you. I'm sure we've probably just scratched the surface on a lot of your guys' stories and some fun stories you guys have as a band, but maybe we can have you guys on again sometime.
That'd be great.
Awesome.
I gotta tell you, we love your show.
Oh, I appreciate it.
I don't get to listen to a lot of the interviews as much as I want to, but I do try. I got to hear Chip Evans and Heather Kelly's interview. Loved it. It was great.
Yep.
I hope to hear more. Well, keep doing what you're doing. We
appreciate
all of us band guys really appreciate it. Yeah.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Appreciate it, you guys.
Thanks for
you guys
making
very
it.
much.
Thank you.
I appreciate it.
Thanks for having us.
Awesome.
Thanks, Pete.
Absolutely. All right.
Awesome.
Oh, we did it. We finally did it. I'm smiling right now because it feels good to actually have this episode recorded and sounding great. And, you know, I sat down and talked to the Kris Karr Band. When I discussed it in the podcast, but when I first started playing guitar, these guys were some of my favorites. It was enjoyable to see people playing live and getting into it. And, you know, they were one of the bands that just played a lot around the area when there weren't a whole lot of bands playing around the area. And it was great to see them live. They play a lot of songs that I like, a lot of shows and places I can actually go attend. Nice, easy stuff to get to and listen to, and they're all really, really talented people. You could tell in the podcast that they all really enjoy one another's company. They all have a good time, just kind of goofing around and having a fun time. And that's another thing that attracted me to them as a band was the fact that they all just get along so well. They're all so just fun-loving when they're up there playing music and just enjoying what they do. And that's what it's all about, ladies and gents, is just going out there playing the music, enjoying what you're doing, and these guys are some of the perennials in the area of doing that kind of stuff. So shout out to each and every one of you guys. I really appreciate you taking time out of your day to sit down and talk with me about what you have going on. And speaking about what's going on, I want to talk to everybody about the Rockin' Picnic. There's a winter event this year, and the Rockin' Picnic winter event is going to be February 22nd at Rustics, starting at 8 o'clock, free admission. I want to say that again, free admission. The show is free. It's worth a shot just to go down there, enjoy the show. Who's playing? It's J. Clyde Band, one of my favorite bands in the area. These guys also rock. It's going to be a fun time. They play. They're going to be playing some covers, some originals. Their originals are awesome too, so it's worth checking out. Rockin' Picnic Winter Party 2020 featuring the J. Clyde Band, February 22nd at Rustics in Humboldt. Show starts at 8, and it's free. Need I say more? Free. Gotta love it. Hey, while we're talking about good stuff, I want to talk about Couchtown Coffee. Huge shout out to those guys sponsoring us week in, week out. You can go to couchtowncoffee.com. Check out their Facebook page too, facebook.com/couchtowncoffee. You can find a coffee you like, and when you make an order, you can save 20%. Why? Because you're listening to this podcast. That's why. You like local music, they support local music, they want to support the people who support the local music, and that's you. If they're going to give you 20% off your order, all you got to do is enter the code word KKB this week. While you're making your order, you get to save 20%. Hard to beat that. Oh man, this is good coffee. Don't miss out. Check it out. It's roasted by a musician himself, Andrew Chipman. Likes local music. It's in his family. He's played around the area. He still does play live, so hopefully I'll get a chance soon to sit down with Mr. Chipman. I know I've rumored it before, but we'll get there. We'll get there. Andrew Chipman makes some awesome coffee. Check it out, www.couchtowncoffee.com. Make sure you enter the code word KKB. Save yourself 20%. Hey guys, hats off to the Kris Karr Band. Man, this is a fun episode, long episode, but you know what? It was good. It's awesome stuff. I want to say thanks to each of those guys for taking the time to, sit down with me. It's one of those deals. It's not easy to sit down with one person, let alone 5, and they all sacrifice their time. So huge thanks, guys. Thanks to everybody that's listening. Go to www.audiblefarm.com. Check out all the other stuff Audible Farm has. Merch. There's other links to stuff. You can just hit us up. We're going to be promoting a few shows here and there. It looks like it's a thing that's going to start happening, so check that out. I'll see you guys all next week with another awesome episode. Peace.